I'm going to try and combine two things that I really like. I love traditional archery. I've got a wonderful bow here that I had made for me. Really enjoy that sport. I really like riding a motorcycle. So here on my Harley Ultra Classic, I've got two antennae in the back here, and I'm going to try to make one of those kind of look like an arrow. Here's what I'm thinking. This is the antenna, obviously, and on an arrow normally you have different colors. There's a cock feather, and then there are two other feathers. So one of the things I want to have happen here is that when this is done, I want the cock feather, the odd color feather, facing forward. So with this chalk, I'm going to put just a little bit of a mark on the portion of the antenna that's currently facing forward. The reason being that this just unscrews. So when I screw this back in, oh, I should double check that. When I screw this in and it's tight, right there, there's the part of the antenna that's forward facing. I'm going to mark that, and then when I get to the next step, that's where I want that cock feather to go. And then it's really easy to get the antennas off. They typically just lefty-loosey. And then I can do this work in my shop instead of out here on the bike. There's that index mark that I put onto the antenna earlier. That's where the fletching has to go. Now what I need to do is mark the fletching where these spiral ribs are on the antenna, just using a Sharpie for that. I thought scissors from my first aid box would be the perfect answer for clipping these out, but not so much. Those first aid scissors just weren't crisp enough, and in the end a utility knife, X-Acto knife, was the way to do this. And just defining each of those little notches, making a kind of a vertical cut, and then once all the vertical cuts are done, I come back and do a cut lengthwise in order to complete the notch and make a spot for the spiral. Once I know that the notches are in the right spot and are going to work, I use a spring clamp to keep the antenna in the right orientation and denatured alcohol to clean that whole thing off so that I know that the adhesive, silicone caulk, is going to actually get a good bite up against that rubber antenna. Little dab will do you. Little drop of silicone on each of the flat spots on the fletching. Fletching's made to be glued onto an arrow, so we're not doing anything weird here. There's already a flat kind of a flange there that I can put the adhesive on, 100% silicone, and then seat that fletching in just the right spot, carefully align it, and gotta kind of know when to be done, when to just leave it alone. I'm happy with how that looks. Now I got to give that at least a couple hours for the silicone to dry. To figure out where this fletching goes, I'm just dividing the circumference of that antenna into approximate thirds. There'll be a piece of fletching on each third. And then from there, it's rinse and repeat. Use a Sharpie to mark out where the notches go, and then an X-Acto knife to cut the notches out. Test it to make sure it works, and then back to the silicone caulk again, using a spring clamp to hold the antenna in the right orientation so this piece of fletching is going on top. Once the second one is dry, repeat the process again with the third and final one. I got her done in real time. It's about 24 hours from when I first shot the first part of this saying, here's what I'm going to do. You got to make sure you give the silicone ample time to dry. Once it is dry, then we can install. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how this came out. The silicone is just a little bit goopy, and I would make a bigger effort to be a lot neater if I did this again. Now remember, I want that cock feather to face forward, so just a little bit right there. And then if you're wondering, yes, the trunk clears that so it's not going to catch on that fletching as it goes by. I like it. It's unique, and it certainly makes the bike highly identifiable, and more importantly, it combines two things that I really like a lot: traditional archery and riding a motorcycle.